about that over the next 11 weeks. And today is just going to be sort of an introduction to it. And I will give you a little bit of the background on my interest in this. And I have been teaching classes. I've done 2 gospel meetings on premillennialism in Idaho, one in Moscow and one in Blackfoot. And I did my first lesson on this back in 1982, I think. And so I've done numerous Bible classes on it before, and done sermons on it. And the reason it's so important for us to understand is that it is a prevalent doctrine, whether you realize it or not. It depends on, what circle the eclipse. The eclipse, for example, if you were on Facebook very much, and if you clicked on one thing about the eclipse was another sign of the imminent return of Christ. What's happening in Israel right now was another sign of the imminent return of Christ. And there's some passages that we're going to be looking at through this study that the premillennialists use that they're taken out of context. And I appreciate so much Josh's lesson, his class on Daniel and on Ezekiel, because those are 2 what I call premillennial playgrounds, along with Matthew chapter 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, all of these. And they take them totally out of context to put them into some kind of situation. And so what we're going to look at is just what is the rapture. And I want to go back to 1982 for a minute. There was a book that came out called The Late Great Planet Earth. Some of you may have seen it way back then. And it was by Hal Lindsey. And with this C.G. Carlson, a lady who was very much involved with it. And it was a prediction of the end of the world with the rapture, all of this kind of things that go with that doctrine. And Hal Lindsey sold with this book at that time. This was big news everywhere. He sold millions and millions. I was trying to see if it had in here of copies of this, but he had different. Like it was published in 1970, 26 printings in January of 73, 36 printings in 81, and he literally sold millions of copies of this book. And so it was a very prevalent, and that's when I did my first lesson on premillennialism, because it was in the news. It was in our face, so to speak. And then not long after that, in 82, this little booklet came out, 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Could Be in 1988. Anybody got any idea why 1988? What's 40 years from prior to that? Israel became a nation, a sovereign nation. Okay, and the premillennialists look at Israel as Israel of Old Testament prophecy. We're going to look at why that is not so. That the Israel of today is nothing more than a sovereign nation, just like the United States. Okay. And this one too, in this little booklet, he put things in here like the 69th week of Daniel ended 6 April 30 AD at the closing of Jesus' tomb. The 70th week of Daniel starts with the Day of Atonement, 1988. Okay. And when the Antichrist signs the 7-year peace pact with Israel on 21 September 1988. And the 70th week of Daniel ends 7 Jewish years later on the Day of Atonement in 1995 at the Battle of Armageddon. None of that stuff happened. Okay, none of that stuff happened. And God told the Israelites early on in Deuteronomy chapter 18, how shall we know the word which the Lord has not spoken? When a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, if the thing does not happen or come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You shall not be afraid of him. There is no opportunity for a prophet to be wrong ever, a prophet of God. Okay? One missed prophecy is enough to say this person is a false prophet. Okay? It doesn't take anything else. And you don't need to pay any heed to them. Okay, so that was when all this really started with me. And then several years ago, back in the 1990s, Tim LaHaye with Jerry Jenkins came up with a series of books geared toward teenagers. And that's when I started doing some more studies on this, that called the Left Behind series. And there's some of the Left Behind new that's coming out now. New movies, new books. And it was taken by storm. My kids dealt with it. And that's why I started doing another series of classes on it. Because my kids were dealing with it. Zachary's already dealt with it now, with what's coming up now. He asked me a question not long ago about something one of his friends said about something had to be restored or whatever, and then that we were heading into the end days. I want to read a passage to you right here, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about this whole concept. All right, in Titus chapter, let's see if I can find where I had it. Okay, Titus chapter 2, and I'm going to start with verse 11. For the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in the present age, looking for the blessed hope and the glorious appearing of our great God and Savior Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us that he might redeem us from every lawless deed and purify for himself in his own special, zealous good works. Okay, we're familiar with that passage. Looking for the blessed hope and the glorious appearing. Okay, what's that mean to you? We've got something to look forward to, right? Well, according to Tim LaHaye in his book, the blessed hope is the rapture, and the glorious appearing comes 7 years later when Jesus returns with the saints. And we're going to be talking about that. Okay? The only way you can get that out of that is to make it up. Okay, and so we're going to talk about some of that. So there's so much in here. I've got a whole collection because when I teach something, I want to hear what the other side said, okay? I don't want to just say it by word. And so that's why I have this, and I call it my collection of biblical fiction or sometimes biblical science fiction, you know. I actually have three, I think I've got the whole set of the original Left Behind movies because it's a good science fiction comedy. And the reason I say it's a comedy, everybody disappears and people are saying, wow, what happened? And then they go about their business. You know, hundreds of thousands of people have disappeared and people just go about their business. Well, what was it? What was it? Eventually they figured maybe it was an alien that took all these people up or whatever. Nobody in the movie, except for just a couple of people, link it to what the rapture is. Okay, we're going to talk about the rapture too. And so again, that prompted some more. Well, what's coming up now, I had a friend of mine from Alabama, a high school friend. We spent this weekend with them. And I saw him when I was last time in Alabama. We went out to eat, and his wife made the comment. He said, man, we're just seeing Revelation unfold before us. Some of you probably heard that comment from people right now. And I said, no, we didn't. And so that led me into about a 20-minute sermon on this very topic. And so, again, you know, it's there in our face. And then I got a cousin that constantly puts all this stuff up on the page about what's going on with the eclipse and all the signs that are in heaven. And that's not necessarily brand new, because John Hagee had this book, The Four Blood Moons. I bought that so I'd know for sure how off the wall he was. I already knew how off the wall he was, but when I read this, and I want to read you a passage, what he thinks of me, okay? Let me see if I can find it here. Maybe it's this orange tab. Somewhere in here, where I marked it. But somewhere in here, I'll have to go back and look and see. I thought I had it marked. But he talks about that anybody who preaches against the idea of the rapture is a false prophet. And so, critics of the rapture claim that the rapture does not exist because the word rapture does not appear in the biblical text. We're going to talk about the rapture in just a few minutes, a little bit more. True, the specific word rapture does not mention in the scriptures. However, the Bible is a book of concepts and word pictures, so the simple person of modest comprehension can grasp the truth. And then he talks a little bit later on about anyone who teaches that the rapture is not going to happen is a false prophet. Now, first time I've been called a prophet, but anyway, I'm a false one, but anyway. And then the new guru is Dr. David Jeremiah. Emphasis on doctor, whatever that's worth. And he's got several books. This one is The Great Disappearance. I just got this one recently because, again, I want to be what's going on right now and being said right now. And Dr. Jeremiah, or David Jeremiah, he wouldn't call me doctor, so I'll just call him. He says in here, and this will give you an idea of where he's coming from, I owe a lot to Hal Lindsey and Tim LaHaye. I believe one of the reasons God blessed these remarkable books by Lindsey and Dr. LaHaye is this: the rapture is a central event of each series. The rapture is also the central event in biblical prophecy. And then he talks about how the rapture is taught throughout the scriptures, and then he's got several other passages that we're going to be looking at a little bit later on. He had a free chart of the Revelation prophecy. So I downloaded it. I had to give him my email, and then, of course, he sent me this welcome thing. I got this. Then he sent me this welcome thing, said, welcome to Turning Point. So I immediately unsubscribed because all I wanted this. I didn't want to be on his mailing list. But it's a Revelation prophecy chart. And he deals with the rapture, and he said to take his church to be with him, then the tribulation, the unrestrained evil, then the second coming to judge the world, the millennium to rule the world, and then a new heaven and a new earth. And we're going to look at that. So, and this isn't the only place I've seen this. When you look in Revelation, chapter 2 through 3 is where we are right now. We're in the church age. And we're in the church age because, according to this theory, Christ failed when he came to earth to establish his kingdom because the Jews rejected him. And so, as a sort of a plan B, the church age was set up. And so the chapters 1, 2 through 3 are dealing with the church age. And at the end of the church age, then we get into chapters 6 and through 8, the seven seals and the 7 trumpets, the 7 bowls, and all of these are part of the tribulation that's going to be here on earth. And then you get to Revelation chapter 20, which is the key passage for premillennialists, is Revelation chapter 20, and I believe it's verse 4, about the 1,000-year reign, okay? And according to the premillennialist doctrine, that theory is that after all of this stuff happens, then Christ will come back to earth. He will establish, so you got the church age, then the rapture of the church, then there'll be 7 years of tribulation, then Christ will return with the saints, and then that's when the Battle of Armageddon is supposed to be. And then, or is it at the end? I get mixed up. The Battle of Armageddon at that point in time. And of course, Jesus wins, and then he sets up his literal throne in Jerusalem, the literal throne of David, to sit on in Jerusalem for 1,000 years. And all the saints will have peace for 1,000 years. And then there will be another resurrection at the end of that time, where the saved go to heaven and the evil go to hell. And so there's several resurrections involved in this. And what I'd like to do, let me mention this real quick. One of the things that we're going to be looking at quite a bit in this study, we're going to be looking at the 1,000-year reign. We're going to be looking at the 2 witnesses in Revelation chapter 11. We're going to be looking at this Joel chapter 2, because that's one that says that hadn't happened yet. And he pretty clearly says this is that the Joel prophet prophesied. But because they had never seen the moon turn to blood, enter John Hagee, they haven't seen the moon turn to blood, it hadn't happened yet, okay? And that's 4 of them, because when 4 of them happen, something drastic is going to happen in Israel. Again, all of these things, they're taken out of context and applying it to the future. And I've got one graph, I've shown it before in a class that I did, it said the mountain peaks. And it shows, and this one was really interesting to me, it showed a prophet, and he's looking forward, and there's all these mountain peaks, and we're going to be looking at it later on. And then at the top of one mountain peak to the next peak is a big valley, and that's the church age. And it says on the chart, the prophets could not see in this valley. Okay? So that's because it wasn't in God's plan. Okay, and so again, then they could see the rapture. That's not in there either. So anyway, that's what we're going to deal with. I've got a couple of things. If I could get some people to pass some of these out, a couple of handouts. Zachary, Titus, anybody else? We got 2 different things. I need you to hand them out to everybody. All right, put these boys to work. Okay. There's 2 different pieces I'm giving you. One of them explains the theory, and the other is that chart, a chart that I was trying to sort of explain. And as we look at these things, and we're going to be talking about these different aspects of it. I left one thing up here in my Bible that I wanted to pull out. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then come back again. Yeah. Uh-huh. And exactly, that's what it is. I call it a plan B, because plan A didn't come to pass.
So man defeated God.
Yes.
I mean, think about that.
Uh-huh. And my view is, if Christ didn't do it the first time, what kind of confidence can I have in the second time? Jennifer?
That was kind of my question. We work with these people, teach these people. They're good people.
Uh-huh. They're good people. They are.
Very, very dedicated. Very,
A lot of them are very religious.
very religious, very loving. So for me, I want to know, like the overview of what is the main
Yeah.
danger or of pre-millennial doctrine.
And that's what we are going to be getting into. Some of the topics we're going to look at, what it is and what it isn't. Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, Daniel 70 weeks, Ezekiel chapter 38, Ezekiel's temple, the 144,000, the Antichrist, the rapture and tribulation, the Lord's return, the two witnesses, and also the danger. And I'll go ahead and give you a couple of the dangers just right now that I see. Is one, it minimizes Christ's church. He purchased it with his blood. And it minimizes the importance of that church. Okay? It minimizes the ability of Christ to do what he said he was going to do. And to take that away from Christ takes away all hope to me. Okay? And so again, it's one of those things that we have to look at and say, okay, is this true? It brings Christ back down to his footstool. He's reigning in heaven right now, is what the Bible says. Thank you. Is what the scriptures say. But he's reigning in heaven there. And they're going to bring it back to earth and put him on a literal throne where we're told that the earth is his footstool. So we take him off his throne and put him on his footstool. Kevin?
On my last trip up to Elko, I've been visiting a new congregation. It's a congregation that's split from the other ones in town. And we've been going there for probably about the last 6 months, and trying to determine just exactly what they believe and that sort of thing, and how doctrinally sound they are. And so on Easter, the evangelist, so-called evangelist, and he's a great speaker, very good speaker. He welcomed the congregation. Congregation of probably about 75 or 80 people. And he said, we are so glad to have you here today. On this day, this day of Easter. He said, to celebrate with us. And he said, I know that Easter has some pagan roots. But he said, I think this is a great day to remember the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And he said, really? He said, it's whatever we make this day to be. And so I want to welcome each and every one of you to the assembly here. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. It's whatever you make it.
Yeah.
And I think that the application here with regards to this belief, people like the liberty, the flexibility
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
to insert their little thoughts. And the last thing that people really like is something that is regimented, something where you have to have self-discipline, there's obedience. It's a lot more pleasing to an individual to know that, well, it doesn't really say this, so, I kind of, overall, I believe this, but I also believe this here, too.
Yeah.
It's that itching ears.
Well, exactly. And it's the rapture is because during this 7-year tribulation is your second chance. If you don't make it at the rapture, you got 7 years, and it's going to be terrible. But if you make it through it, then you're going to be saved. Okay, and so if you look at the chart that I passed out, you see there's 7 years of tribulation. Then on the bottom. But the saints are going to be 7 years in paradise. And then they're going to bring all these people back. And I guess what, to me, in my mind, is if I'm in paradise, don't bring me back here, please. You know, I don't want to come back, you know. Once I'm up there, just let me stay. And so I've mentioned before that part of Christ's sacrifice to me was that he left the glories of heaven to come here. Okay? And so that's part of his sacrifice. Because I mean, no, if I'd been in heaven, I'd say, hey, you know, I don't want to leave. Robbie?
I was going to also say that they preach that, you know, you can pray Jesus into your heart. And that's the thing. So a lot of what they believe is not based on the Bible.
Yeah.
It's, you know, they pray them into your heart and you're saved. The Bible teaches nothing about that. So there's a lot of things they believe that.
Yeah. And that's what I want to talk about next is that very, very thing. If you look on there, you see the Bible of at their return, the Battle of Armageddon, which was supposed to happen in 1995, according to these 88 reasons. Rapture had happened in 1988. The resurrection of the tribulation saints, there's a second resurrection. And then the judgment of the saints, kingdom established, okay, because they deny that the church is the kingdom. The Jews return, okay, complete with all the Old Testament ways of law. The temple is going to be rebuilt. The priests are going to offer sacrifices. Everything that was in the Old Testament is going to come back for 1,000 years. And the problem is, again, that contradicts a number of passages. In Hebrews, it talks about a better covenant, a better, you know, if this one's better, the old one needed to wax away, disappear. And why go back to it?
I was just going to go back to your statement about the dangers. You know, we're told we have to refute false doctrine
Yeah.
and false teachers. This is a false doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
It's dangerous in a lot of ways because it gets people's thinking off. But basically, it is contrary to the Word of God.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. And so it is. It's a false doctrine that we need to refute. Now, there's several. We're going to be looking at Revelation some. We're going to go back to Daniel some. We're going to be looking at Ezekiel some. We're going to be looking at Joel some during all of this study. This is my favorite. I've got a number of books on Revelation, commentaries. I've got the Truth Commentary with Bob Harkrider that's really good. That's the one I saw the Heaven Open with Dan King, Homer Haley's. But my favorite of all of them is by a man, he wasn't even a member of the church. He was a professor at Baylor, Worthy as the Lamb. And to me, that is one of the best. It's been around for eons, for a long, long time. So if you can get a copy of that one, that one is a good one to look at. And then I just got this one. And this one is Premillennialism, True or False. It's edited by Wendell Winkler. It's the preachers, it's a lectureship that was given on this topic. And most of them, all of them are liberal preachers that are in here. Some of them are long gone. But it's right, to me, it's spot on when it comes to this topic right here. And then there's several others that you can get. I just recently got this one right here, The Middle East Conflict in the Bible by Farrell Jenkins. And I didn't know this, so I'm going to keep it really close to me. The Old Testament in the book of Revelation by Farrell Jenkins. Right? Very helpful in understanding Revelation. And Josh said he found this book on eBay for $100. So it's mine, okay? All right, so you can look at it, but don't touch. Okay, now, one of the things I want to touch real quick, okay, the rapture. The rapture is one of the newest doctrines, the most recent doctrines, other than the sinner's prayer. The sinner's prayer, when I started researching all this stuff, the sinner's prayer came about in 1930 by a man named Billy Sunday, and it was promoted by Billy Graham. And because you don't find the sinner's prayer anywhere in the scriptures. Right? The rapture, the first time you see the rapture really taken hold was in 1830. Okay, you don't see it in any of the earlier ones. There is one man that wrote a series, a thought on it when back in 1744 that nobody gave much credit. It was a paper that he wrote when he was at a university. And he just mentioned it, and nobody really went with it. But in 1830, a man named John Darby started pushing it. Schofield Bible picked it up, the Schofield Study Bible. And then others started picking it up. John McCarthy, his study Bibles will be very premillennialist in there. Just about any, mine is an Nelson, it's a New King James, it's a study Bible. Just about any study Bible that you find today is going to have some premillennial thoughts in it. But understand, if it's not found anywhere in the early writers, the first century writers, okay? It's not found anywhere in the scriptures. And the reason so many members of the church don't know a whole lot about it is because it's not in the Bible. And if you're a student of the Bible, you're not going to find it in there. If you were to hand somebody the Bible and say, just read this and tell me, what you can learn about the rapture or the premillennialist, all that stuff, they're not going to be able to do it because it's not in here. And so it's been promoted over the years, and now it's very, very prevalent in so many denominations, and it's also crept into a lot of churches of Christ. It's one of those like once saved, always saved. It's a comforting doctrine because it says, hey, I'm good to go. And if I miss it the first time, hey man, I can deal with anything for 7 years to make it to heaven. Well, no, that's not the way it's going to work. And we're going to look at scriptures that show about the judgment. We're going to look at those kind of scriptures. This other one that I gave you is just one you can take home and read. It explains more and more about it, what a premillennialist is. There's a postmillennial. Premillennial is a look at the idea that the 1,000-year reign is not going to come until after the rapture and all that stuff. Postmillennial is that we're already in it, maybe in it. Alexander Campbell felt like we were already in it. And that at the end of it, then when Jesus came, then, all this other stuff would happen. And then there's the amillennialist, which I would say of any of them, I am, or some people just say it, I just don't believe in the millennial. And that's what the amillennialist is. They don't look at that as anything other than it's a spiritual situation, and the saints are having, and the 1,000 years is not literal. And so, and that's what I believe in when I look at Revelation and study Revelation. If you can't take a book, any writing, and make it apply to the people it was written to, you're going to miss the point, okay? And Revelation was not written to us. It's written for us to learn from it, primarily that Christ is going to be victorious, whatever happens. But those people at that time that it was written were about to go through tremendous persecution with Domitian. And a lot of them were going to be killed. A lot of them were going to be just mistreated. A lot of things that they were going through just for the fact of being a Christian. Nero's persecution was just around Rome. And it was primarily the Christians were just a good scapegoat for him. But Domitian's covered all that area up in Asia. That's why the 7 churches are mentioned. His persecution spread outside of Rome to anybody that was a Christian, okay? A lot more than just what Nero did. And so, again, when we start to put things in perspective and in the right time frame and everything, then I hope we can get an understanding of it. There's other books. You're welcome to come and look. I'm going to leave these on the front pew because I don't think anybody's going to sit on the front pew. I'm going to leave these out until if you want to come and look at it and see. That end is all my pay. There's one other one that's really good. If you happen to have a copy, I don't even know if you can get a copy or not. God's Prophetic Word, Foy E. Wallace. He dealt with fighting this back in the 1940s. Okay? This book was copyrighted in 1946. Older than me. All right, so that's old. But it is very, very good in the dispute and the dealing with this. So anyway, that's what we're going to do, and we're going to start looking at some of these topics. I don't have a specific topic in mind each week yet. I'm going to try to put that down. This is just an introduction of what's going on, what we're going to try to cover. So we've got 11 weeks, or 10 weeks now, of classes, and we are going to be looking at a lot of scriptures that refute this very doctrine, because what I want is for you to be able to have the understanding to be able, when somebody says, hey Josh, Revelation's just unfolding in front of us. And I don't know how long it's going to be before the eclipse gets out of the picture. But the eclipse was huge because people want to look to the heavens. There's no signs up in the heavens about God's return. Okay? And the misuse of the prophecies in Joel, Peter very clearly says on the day of Pentecost, this is that the prophet Joel spoke of. And then he quotes it. Even the blood, the stars falling out of the sky, all these kind of things. Those are not literal. That passage, that prophecy has been fulfilled. But thank you for your comments. And again, I hope you enjoy the class. If you got any kind of questions, let me know. Again, I tell many people, this is what I believe. Don't believe what I believe just because I say it from here. You need to study it yourself, because you're not going to answer for what David said. David's going to answer for what David said. All right? And so you're going to answer for what you believe. And if you don't put the effort into trying to learn about things, then you're going to be answering with those kind of issues. So anyway, thank you so much. We'll get started again, really into the scriptures and things next week.